This report included damning information on the rise of violent crime on Indian reservations and essentially predicted the situation we find ourselves in today if we didn't do anything back then to address it. In your own words, you state, quote, "Since then, nothing has been done," end quote. That is a very sad state of affairs. Secretary Mayorkas disagrees with you, however, and in 2023, in a judiciary hearing, he actually stated that our approach to managing the border securely and humanely, even within our fundamentally broken immigration system, is working. Would you agree with Secretary Mayorkas that they have secured the border and their approach to the immigration is working? Do you agree with him?
Currently?
What you just watched was a sitting member of Congress directly challenging the official narrative about the border. And in my opinion, Representative Harriet Hageman did exactly what elected leaders are supposed to do. She brought receipts. She brought witnesses. And she demanded real answers. Welcome back to Congress Lens. I'm Audrey. This hearing was not political theater. It was about Native American communities, drug trafficking, cartel profits, and whether the federal government is telling the American people the truth. When Hageman confronted previous claims made by Alejandro Mayorkas that the border is secure and the system is working, she did not just argue. She put real-world testimony up against those statements. And the witnesses did not hold back. If you believe Congress should challenge power no matter which party is in charge, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Congress Lens, and drop a comment below telling me whether you think the border is secure right now.
According to the House Budget Committee report, international cartels are reaping unprecedented profits from human and drug smuggling and trafficking, upwards of $30 million a day or nearly $1 billion a month. International drug cartels have been purposely targeting rural Native American reservations, both for the sale of meth and as distribution hubs for fentanyl. Indian country has also borne the brunt of the horrific rise in human sex trafficking. Even before the recent influx of fentanyl use and overdoses, an older DOJ study from 2006 estimated that 40% of violent crimes are attributable to methamphetamine, which we know is disproportionately trafficked in and bought and sold on Indian reservations. Since then, this problem has gotten much worse, not better. Chief Roberge, in your testimony, you mentioned a report that was authored by the National Congress of American Indians and sent to Congress in 2006. This report included damning information on the rise of violent crime on Indian reservations and essentially predicted the situation we find ourselves in today if we didn't do anything back then to address it. In your own words, you state, quote, "Since then, nothing has been done," end quote. That is a very sad state of affairs. Secretary Mayorkas disagrees with you, however, and in 2023, in a judiciary hearing, he actually stated that our approach to managing the border securely and humanely, even within our fundamentally broken immigration system, is working. Would you agree with Secretary Mayorkas that they have secured the border and their approach to the immigration is working? Do you agree with him?
Currently?
Yes.
That he has secured the border and his approach to immigration is working?
That's what he testified to before the Judiciary Committee.
No.
That's not what your experience has been, has it?
Not.
What about
Not at
you,
all.
Ms. Zinn, or you, Mr. Norris? Do you believe that the current administration has secured the border and that their approach is working?
No, our southern border is wide open and our northern border is wide open.
Absolutely not.
Well, and many Indian communities have been and will continue to be devastated by the overflowing of fentanyl that's crossing our border. In my home state of Wyoming, over 23,700 pills were seized in 2023 alone. Ms. Zinn, you have highlighted some of your successful operations, including a multi-agency operation where you seized tremendous amounts of meth and OxyContin laced with fentanyl. Can you explain how in this particular instance you were able to work effectively across agencies?
You have to have a leadership in place that's willing to do that. You have to have that olive branch and say, hey, we can do this together if we work together as a team. It's called communicating, and the end goal is to take care of the community.
Do we have that leadership in place with the Biden administration
At which level?
right now?
I would say in the state of Montana, we do have that relationship in place.
We're hearing from other witnesses today that these kinds of seizures are very difficult to accomplish, however, and as someone working very closely on these issues, in your opinion, what tends to cause interagency disputes?
Territory. Yo tengo mío. I have my case. You have your case. This case and it won't get prosecuted in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Maybe it will. All that comes into play.
And Ms. Sin, in your work, you've seen mass migration across the southern border, and all three of you just stated that the southern border is wide open and whatever they're doing down there is not working, and it's having a devastating effect on our reservations. We're now looking at unprecedented numbers crossing the border every single day, and the announcement that was made by President Biden just today in terms of his executive order is not going to stem that flow. Our colleagues on the other side of the aisle are desperate to cover up the real-life consequences of the wide-open border that has occurred over the last 3 years. As someone who has worked on these issues across various administrations, Ms. Zinn, is it safe to say that the southern border is in the worst shape it's ever been under President Biden?
Absolutely. I've worked on the southern border. I know what the border looks like.
Would you agree, Mr. Norris?
Absolutely.
And what about you, Chief Roberge?
Yes.
Okay. With that, I want to thank you three for being here. I will echo what Chairman Westerman has stated. We've now had a couple of hearings on this particular topic, and as the chairman of the Subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs, I take this extremely seriously, and it's breaking my heart what we're seeing happening on our reservations. I just had the opportunity to question the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, on this very issue, and I have demanded that they attempt to do something to address the open southern border so that we can provide some relief to our tribes and our tribal members. We're going to continue to fight this issue because it is so incredibly critically important to our tribal members, to our tribes, and really to the future of our country. So thank you for being here.
Now let's break down what really happened in this hearing. After watching the full exchange, what stands out to me most is that Harriet Hageman stayed focused on impact, not headlines, not spin, but she started with hard numbers. International cartels reportedly making up to $30 million a day, nearly $1 billion a month. That is not small-time smuggling. That is organized, large-scale criminal enterprise. And according to testimony, Native American reservations are being specifically targeted, both for meth distribution and as fentanyl hubs. That is devastating. Hageman referenced older Department of Justice findings that tied 40% of violent crime to methamphetamine back in 2006. Then Chief Rober confirmed that warnings were issued years ago, and in Chief Rober's own words, nothing has been done. That is not partisan rhetoric. That is frustration from someone on the ground. Then came the key moment. Hageman directly quoted Alejandro Mayorkas, who previously testified that the administration's border approach is working and that the border is secure. Instead of making it emotional, she simply asked the witnesses whether that matched their lived experience. Every single one of them said no. Not that it is complicated. Not that it is improving. Just no. They described both the southern and northern borders as wide open. They talked about fentanyl flooding into communities. Wyoming alone seized over 23,000 pills in 2023. And that is only what was intercepted. What I respect about Harriet Hageman's approach here is that she did not exaggerate. She let the witnesses dismantle the narrative themselves. That is effective oversight. One witness explained that successful operations require strong leadership and real interagency cooperation. In Montana at the state level, that cooperation exists. But federally, there are territorial disputes, prosecution gaps, and breakdowns. That matters. Because when Washington says the system is working, but tribal leaders are saying their communities are being devastated, someone is clearly out of touch. And Congress has a responsibility to figure that out. Hageman also made it clear that this is not just a political disagreement. As chair of the Subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs, she framed this as a moral obligation to protect tribal members. Whether you agree with her broader politics or not, holding executive officials accountable for outcomes is part of the job. Here is my honest take. Oversight only works if members of Congress are willing to publicly challenge their own government's claims. That is what happened here. You can debate immigration policy all day. You can argue about solutions. But when witnesses under oath say the border is not secure and fentanyl is pouring into vulnerable communities, that deserves serious attention. At the end of the day, Harriet Hageman centered this hearing around one core question. Are the people on the ground experiencing what federal officials say is happening? Based on this testimony, the answer was clearly no. That is why hearings like this matter. I'm Audrey, and this is Congress Lens. If you want more full breakdowns of congressional hearings with real analysis and no fluff, hit subscribe. And let me know in the comments. Do you think federal leadership is being transparent about the border crisis?